Coming in a difficult period in January when he replaced obviously Frank Lampard, and within 5 months delivers the Champions League with the same set of players that didn't look like doing anything. If we're being perfectly honest, I think we were 9th or 10th on the table when he took over. And to come in and to transform it, obviously comes in, switches to a 3 at the back, or back 5. We've had success with that under Antonio Conte, obviously different players though, but he's come in, and I don't think it should be understated how huge that impact is to take a team that is struggling, playing awful football, 9th in the table in January, to in May winning the Champions League, and not only winning the Champions League, but the teams that we beat along the way, and the fact that I think we conceded 4 goals in the whole tournament. I think that's the best defensive record in the Champions League history. When under Lampard, we were shipping goals left, right, and centre with the same players. I think, he used his experience, bringing the likes of Rudiger back in from the cold. I hadn't really seen him very much, bringing Jorginho back as well. Sort of key players that under Lampard, for whatever reasons, weren't featuring, to then bring those back in. I think that's kind of where Tuchel, using his experience, his know-how within the game, to kind of get senior pros on side. And the way that he developed the likes of Rudiger, how Thiago Silva kicked on even more under him as well. Reece James developing, Ben Chilwell developing, etc., and whatnot. Like, it's that job was phenomenal. I think he has done really well. Reaching 6 of the 7 available finals. I mean, we're talking 2 penalties kicks away from having another 2 trophies in the cabinet, and you're looking at things very differently, and perhaps that buys him a little bit more time. But I think his time has been plagued by things that no football manager should have to be talking about. War in Ukraine, sanctions for the club, which is nothing to do with him. But I think the guys above him, I think they're a little bit spineless, to be perfectly honest. Not apart from Petr Cech, no one coming out and saying anything. Obviously we had communications from Roman through statements through his people and whatnot. Fine, we know that Roman doesn't speak very much publicly anyway. We kind of expect that, but for Chairman Bruce Buck to just be silent on this, nothing on the Super League from Buck, and then nothing on the sanctions from Bruce Buck as well. They almost fed him to the wolves, really, and he's trying to focus on the football, and you get every press conference is not about football. It's about Ukraine, which is nothing to do with him. So I think he had a tough hand there. I thought he handled himself perfectly. He speaks very well. He's an intelligent guy. He's an honest guy. But ultimately, that can be a little bit distracting. But at the end of the day, the results on the pitch, they've not been good. They haven't been good for a while. It's not just the start of this season. The back end of last season was really poor as well.
Pre-season as well.
Pre-season terrible. You could almost argue that really since Christmas, as in last Christmas, where we obviously went on a poor Christmas period, we haven't really played very well at all since Christmas. Look, there's a handful of games where we played well, but generally speaking, consistently haven't played well since Christmas. And there's obviously context to that with everything that's going on outside the club. But when you're looking at just results, and football at the end of the day is a results-based business, people don't like to apply context to things. But the results haven't been great. I mean, I think he's done a great job. I do, obviously winning us a Club World Cup, winning a Super Cup, completing the set for the club. But when you look at, was he building a team for the future? I love him, but I'm not sure. He's one of those managers that, you come in to win now. Chelsea's never gone with a quote-unquote project manager. Look at the names of the managers we've employed. Mourinho, Conte.
Instant success.
You're looking at instant success. Come in, have an instant impact, win a load of trophies, 2-3 seasons tops, and then you move on. We've never had a project manager. And if you look back at where Tuchel's been at his previous clubs, he's never been someone that stays at a club for more than 2 to 3 years either. So you're asking Tuchel to go through something that he's not really done as a manager. And I can quite easily see how the visions didn't align and how there were fallings out, particularly when you've got to deal with people that very successful business people, but no disrespect to them, they don't know anything about football. These guys are completely new to the sport. And when there's no structure above him, there's no surprise that the best work he did was when he first came in with that structure of Mourinho and Cech above him. And he didn't really have much to say, not much communication with Roman, and Mourinho and Cech kind of just do what they do. and Tuchel has a bit of an input, but he can very much focus on the coaching.
Football,
yeah. Whereas this summer, new owners come in, he's cleared out the hierarchy above him. Fine, I get it. New guys are going to come in and they're going to want their own people in. That's cool. I haven't got a problem with that. But my problem is that if you're going to do that, make sure you've got some people lined up to come in.
That's what surprised me. That surprised me a lot.
But in slight defence of them, though, I think Bowley wanted to keep Cech. But I think he wanted to leave. Yeah, I think that when a new guy comes in, you're kind of surplus to requirements. You know that you're going to be eventually replaced. So he took his opportunity to go. But yeah, I'm surprised that perhaps there wasn't people lined up before clearing out that hierarchy. Because by clearing that hierarchy out, Bowley was effectively acting as sporting director. And he was asking a lot of Thomas Tuchel to, regular meetings, thoughts on transfers, this and that, much more active role than any manager would normally have. And I think you could tell he was looking strained. It was taking its toll on him. The pre-season, it was awful. And I know that Bowley didn't plan that tour. It was obviously the previous administration that planned the tour. But at the end of the day, signs were there in pre-season that this was taking a toll on him, having all this extra responsibility. And I think it was quite telling when the window closed that, no, he was just relieved. He was just like, I'm so glad I can just concentrate on football again. I'm not making excuses for why I've played so badly this season, but it's quite clear. It's quite clear that he hasn't been able to 100% focus on the football, on improving the side. And you can tell from our performances that perhaps his messages weren't getting across to the players, or they had noticed that he wasn't 100% on kind of improving the team or whatever, and it kind of came to a head. So I think he's done a phenomenal job. One of the best managers we've had. Sort of for me, I think the closest kind of guy we've had to Mourinho since him. But ultimately, with him going, was I surprised? No, but the one thing that did surprise me was kind of the timing of it. For me, it was either get rid of this guy before the window even opened, just get rid of him before pre-season and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or, get to the World Cup or get to the international break and then reassess there. I mean, if he's not your guy, he's not your guy. But I just think why sort of spend £200 to £300 million on players that have got heavy input from him. I'm not, don't get me wrong, Graham Potter is not going to be annoyed that he's got to work with Philip.
He's inherited some good players.
Like Torreira, who he knows, and Aubameyang's Sterling. He's not going to be annoyed about that. Of course he's not, but
he just hasn't had his say, has he? He hasn't had his input into that. And
so I wasn't surprised at the sacking, mate, but I was more surprised at kind of the timing around it, just because for me, if you're going to get rid of someone, get rid of them before the season starts, or at least get to kind of an international break or the World Cup. I don't think that things weren't great on the pitch at all. And yeah, for sure, they could have got a bit worse. And if you're going to what's the point in waiting 2 weeks? If you're going to get rid of him, just get rid of him. But I was disappointed, but ultimately, I'm not really surprised.
No, I'm definitely with you 100%. You made some really good points. I think, you look at when Thomas Tuchel took the job, that first game, Wolverhampton Wanderers, I think it was 0-0. It was a brilliant game, as much as there was no goals, because if you remember how we were playing under Frank Lampard, and we were crying out for just something to change, and we got to see that. I remember there was a promo video of Tuchel's first training session, a very small clip from on the Fifth Stand app, and you could just notice the difference in the training. We didn't get to see it under Lampard, but you could tell that there was something different about Tuchel coming in, doing really well. And just over the couple of months, you've just got to see this energy and belief, desire from Tuchel just sucked out of him. Obviously he's had off-field, his marriage is broken down as well. COVID, he had to deal with that as well. There were so many things that were just against him. Again, I think Wolves, maybe at Molineux, I think we had 3 outfield players and 2 subs on the bench, and it was just.
I went to that game. It was honestly, we're terrible. We had about 3 keepers on the bench just to fill it.
I couldn't believe, and everyone else's games at the time were getting postponed, if you remember, and it was just our games were never postponed. There's not an excuse to say that we shouldn't have. It's not an excuse, because we still got 11 quality players on the pitch. We should still be able to do a job, but it does hamper your options off the bench as well. I just think it was more the back end, like you said, after Christmas. I think there was a massive congestion. If you remember, last December, we were playing almost a game every 3 days, I think, or something silly. Mendy African Cup of Nations as well. Kepa actually came in and done really well. I think there was a game, the FA Cup, a couple of the FA Cup games he done really well. But it was just after Christmas, and then obviously it was just, you could just tell, I think from pre-season this season starting, you could tell that something wasn't right. The sanctions didn't help in terms of strategy, in terms of recruitment, but I just think in terms of the connection between Todd Boehly and Thomas Tuchel just didn't align, and you could see that. And I think you hit one of the nails on the head in terms of, you know, when any change in any, it doesn't have to be football, just any of the business. If a new owner comes in, he's definitely got a vision. He's got something that he wants to do, and he's normally get rid of the old hierarchy, bring in your own. I agree with you. I was very shocked when Marina Granovskaya left and there was no real replacement. Bruce Buck the same as well. There was no real urgency to get anyone in, and maybe looking back, that was Todd Boehly's idea. You know, I'll take this summer transfer window on my shoulders and just try and carry it through to when the window shuts. And even the director of football now, there's, you know, that's suddenly picked up again, and we're talking about you know, PSG and this person, RB Salzburg's director of football at the moment. I think we're looking at loads of different options. I agree with you. I wasn't shocked. And again, if you've been listening or watching the YouTube videos, you'll know that I've always been saying time is ticking for Thomas Tuchel. The performances haven't been good. Players have been played out of position for obvious reasons, especially before we had Wesley Fofana. You know, we saw Reece James playing right centre back, and I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek was right wing back at times as well. It worked. I think it worked really well. It was almost a hybrid right wing back. It worked, but it's not ideal. But I think for me, I think it was, and it's easy to say this now, but after the Zagreb game in Croatia, you could just tell the players are down tools. There was a disconnect between Tuchel and the players.
He just sat on the, like, you sort of associate Tuchel with being out in his technical area, like shouting instructions and that. He's like barely sits down in the games. Yeah, you know, it's towards the end of his reign. Like literally,
there's nothing from him.
He spent the whole game just sat in the dugout.
Yeah,
nothing from him at all. Just chatting to his assistant every so often, just nothing. And you can tell then, like, having seen what he has been like compared to what he was like at the end, you knew that the end was near, and that's there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we were ever led on to believe.
Yeah, I do think it's a shame, because I think he definitely, like you said, he's probably been arguably our best manager since Jose Mourinho. Very successful in 100 games to win the trophies that he did, the elusive Club World Cup as well, that we've all been wanting to see as Chelsea fans. You know, we were unfortunate under Rafa Benitez, I think, the first attempt at trying to win that. Yeah, I mean, he's still got, you know, he's got years ahead of him. You know, I think one of the things that, and I think you read it as well on one of the tweets, was when he released his statement, and you know, he almost said, you know, he's so, you could tell that the passion was still there for him. I think it's just, as you said, a massive disconnect between owner and manager. But it was just hard to read, because, you know, you don't really get managers that close and passionate and, you know, take the club in as much. You know, they normally just take their compensation package and they move on to another job and, you know, wash their hands of the club. But I don't think that is the case with Thomas Tuchel. I think he does generally have a lot of love for the club, which is a shame for him. You know, it's a shame how it ended, but to have that on your CV for 100 games and those trophies, and, you know, the way we started the season, the facts, you know, we had to, all, like you mentioned, all those things that were happening in between the season as well. I think it's you know, if anything, it just shows how good of a manager he is, that he can cope under those pressures. You know, not many managers could do that.